Thank you. I'm Tim Duncan, and it's my pleasure to be your facilitator, moderator for the evening. And I invite you all on behalf of the City of Pacifica to this public information meeting. I do want to emphasize the word information. This is not a input meeting or asking for your various opinions of things we're going to be doing. This is information. So what this is really about is you get the opportunity to answer. I'll have all your questions answered about a project, and you get to be the person in the know. So importantly then, you can go out and tell your neighbors who aren't here tonight about what's going on and be the informed one as we move forward. So we are so pleased that you've joined us here for the purpose of this. So this is an informational meeting. We're going to be answering questions about the San Pedro Creek Bridge Replacement Project. Okay? So this is the San Pedro Creek Bridge Replacement and Creek Widening Project. You're going to hear a lot of information about what's going on with that, how it's going to take place, and what we're doing with that in the course of the evening. Before we get into the presentation, let me tell you a bit about what's going to take place, and also, first and foremost, allow me to introduce some people that are in the room. I'm probably going to miss some people, and I can pretty much guarantee I'll massacre some names, but I'll go through this and see if you guys can help me out on this. I do believe we have a council member floating around. Mike, where did I? Oh, there he is. So we have Mike O'Neill in the back, a council member. Thank you, Mike, for being here tonight. I think that's the only council member we have here. Is that true? I think that's correct. We also have our city manager in the office tonight, Lori. Good to have you here tonight with us. So if you haven't met your new city manager, take an opportunity to introduce us to Lori. She's a delightful person and very capable, and we're so pleased to have her with us. Then we have the people who are the players relative to this project. And when you look at this project, we have three people I'd like to introduce from Caltrans. That is Mohammed Suleiman. I got it pretty close, didn't I? I was pretty close. I knew it. That's me. Oh, that's okay. So, Mohammed Suleiman, he is the project manager for Caltrans on this. We have Charles Coos, and Charles is the resident engineer for Caltrans. We also have Gidget Navarro, who is the public information officer. So if you have additional questions from the Caltrans project perspective, they'll be glad to answer those questions as we move forward. Also in the audience, we have, I think I saw, there you are, Joe. We have Joe Hurley from the Transportation Authority. Thank you very much. And we'll tell you why we really like having Joe in the audience a little bit later, in case you're not clearing on that one. And then the, let's see, who have I missed? In terms of presenters for the night, the primary presenter is going to be Brandon, am I right? And in addition to Brandon, he has a couple of his crew around, which includes Richard Hopper, who is a traffic engineer, and Taylor Peterson, who's our environmental consultant. So, and then of course we have our Director of Public Works, Dan. Okay. So we have, so these are the people who will be helping to do things. So I'm Tim. I'll be trying to keep charge of bringing the cash as we go through it. Brandon will be doing the primary presentation with Dan. And then whoever needs to answer questions, we will do that. So here's how the evening is anticipated to work. We're so pleased that you're here. We're so pleased to be sharing information about this project. What we intend to do is give you some information first, and then invite you to ask questions. So in so doing that, here's what we'd like to have you do. Sit back, make sure you've got some goodies. You know, it's kind of like watching the movies, and we'll walk you through this. We'll share some background information and then give you what's going to happen in the actual construction, how that's going to work, as well as what is the schedule for this entire project as we go through it. Then we are going to entertain questions. And when we do, what I'd like to do, for the purpose of everybody hearing really well, is that if you haven't, we can take all the questions you want, but I want you to line up on a queue and use the microphone in the center. And if you would just give your name so that we know who's talking, and then ask your question. We'll figure out who answers it best for us, and we'll move on from there. Does that make sense? Excellent. So let's, without further ado, get started. And we're going to share with you information about the project and get going, and some background information we can share by Dan.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
You can find.
Good evening. My name is Van Zambogen, and I'm the Director of Public Works for the city. And the Route 1 San Pedro Big Bridge actually started about 30 years ago. I mean, it was originally part of the Devil Slide project until Caltrans qualified the project limits. That's why it was included in that. In the late 1990s, the city was able to acquire a grant from the Transportation Equity Act for the 21st century in the amount of $1 million, and that started it all. Okay. The original project was just to replace the bridge, and it's supposed to be complementary, and it is complementary to the flood control project that the city endeavored in 2005. Okay, the existing bridge that you have there right now is about 60 years old. It was constructed by Caltrans in 1954, and it does not meet the current seismic and structural standards that we have today. The bridge itself is within flood zone elevation. That's why it is susceptible to flooding. And one thing I want to point out is, much like Devin's Slide, the bridge that you have there right now, if anything would happen to it, whether it's closed or whatever like that, it will render Pacifica like a virtual cul-de-sac. It will paralyze the coastal route of San Mateo County. So it's very important that this bridge be kept in a structurally safe and seismically safe condition. Brandon will speak more about the details of what the project is about. But I just want to also let you know that in 2005, when the city was working with the Army Corps of Engineers towards the completion of the flood control project for Lower Middlemar, it was supposed to be done at that time. It would have been great if we can do it all at the same time so we can have the collection that we wanted. Unfortunately, because of funding, we were able to do that. So the Army Corps project skipped this section between the two bridges. And now it's coming to reality. This project will complete that, and hopefully we'll get the benefit of a 100-year storm event capacity. With that, I'd like to turn it over to President's own mic, and so that they provide you with more detail about the project is about. And as Tim had mentioned, later on we'll have the opportunity to ask any questions you may have about the project. All right? Thank you.
Great. Thanks, man. Everybody okay? My name is Brandon Davis. I'm a project manager with Wilson Cam, civil engineers, and we are consultants to the City of Pacifica for the design of the bridge project. We're actually involved in the environmental phase as well. And as that Dan mentioned, about a decade ago, the Army awarded a project here to the east of the bridge that was aimed to alleviate flooding in the Lower Middlemar area. They expanded the floodplain there, and what we were left with, though, because there wasn't enough funding to replace the bridge, is a point of restriction. And the bridge between the abutments is too narrow, the bridge is kind of low. So the flows really have a hard time getting out to the ocean. So we still have a potential for flooding here at the bridge site. So, as Dan mentioned, it doesn't meet the current seismic standards, structural standards, because it was built in the mid-50s. The bridge deck is below the flood zone elevation. There's no capacity for the 100-year storm flow within the creek to make it out to the ocean in this area. But there are benefits from this project. And the project is going to complete the Army Corps flood control project for the Lower Middlemar area. It's going to expand habitat to two endangered species. That's the California red-legged frog and steelhead. It's going to provide a connection, a disconnected trail system. And it's also going to be constructed with current seismic standards and structural codes. For the status of the project, we've already been through the environmental phase. We've completed the CEQA and NEPA, state and federal environmental processes. We've got our permits. We've completed the design. The project actually went out to bid. Bids were opened 2 weeks ago. The project will be awarded soon, and construction will begin in April. We'll continue through next year in 2015. I mentioned the two species we have. There were a lot of permits that we had to get. The frog, for the California red-legged frog, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has jurisdiction over them. They had to issue their opinion, and they put constraints on the project, how the project could be implemented, while working around this endangered species. Same with National Marine Fisheries Service. They had an opinion for the steelhead, the fish. And even though we're continuing an Army Corps project, we still need to get a full bore permit from them because we are working within waters of the U.S. Coastal Commission weighed in. They care about development within the coastal zone. We needed a CDP and coastal development permit from them, and they put their requirements on the project. Then we have California Department of Fish and Wildlife, formerly known as Fish and Game. They have a lake and stream bed alteration agreement. We will be widening the creek to expand capacity. They also care about the wildlife that's there. That's a 1600 permit. And then last but not least, Regional Water Quality Control Board. They have a 401 water quality cert, and they have requirements on the project that say we're not going to put pollutants in the water and that sort of thing. So we want to make sure we're doing everything in the right way. I think this next slide is about project funding. I'm going to pass it back to Dan for a second to talk about the funding sources.
So for your project funding, the total cost of the project is estimated at $17.45 million. Okay. Originally, the first funding that the city was able to secure was in the late 1998, and that's the T21. It's a federal earmark that we were able to secure a little more than $1 million. In addition to that, in 2005, the city was able to secure another federal earmark. That's part of the safety loop, and that's for an amount of $2.25 million. In addition to that, because this project has a bicycle and pedestrian component to it, we were able to secure $1.141 million, and that's from the One Bay Area Grant. The state is pitching in $3 million, and the rest of the money is coming from Measure A, Transportation Authority. That's the reason why Tim was earlier mentioning Joe earlier. He's from the Transportation Authority. So as you can see, this project is fully funded. And one thing that I would like to point out, there is no city general fund in this project. This is funded through grants. If you see them on the slide.
Yes, Sam. So what we have here is a plan of the bridge. We're looking at it from the sky, looking down on it. The existing bridge it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see the bigger red rectangular shape. Within it, there's a smaller one that's dashed. That's about right here where I'm pointing the laser. That's the existing bridge. I mentioned that's a point of constriction with the creek. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace it with a longer bridge that's an average about 5 feet higher. And what that's going to allow to happen is it's going to allow us to widen the creek out, and there'll be some re-contouring of grade within this area. And then when those two components, the bridge and the creek widening, are complete, then 100-year flood flows will remain within the creek, and they will pass underneath this bridge and the downstream San Pedro Avenue bridge. Okay? Now this graphic makes it look like this bridge is a little wider. I don't want to say that we're widening the bridge, because we're not. We're keeping a single lane of traffic in each direction, with shoulders. We're not increasing capacity for traffic. But what we are doing is we're providing a separated pedestrian and bike pathway along this edge of the bridge, and that's why it is wider, but it's not wider from a traffic standpoint. So we have, I mentioned, 2 disconnected trail systems. We have the San Pedro Terrace Trail here that begins here. For pedestrians to access this, you have to cross the highway here, or walk up the highway to get to it, and it's not really a safe way to do it. There's no sidewalk along that side. The other trail is the Pacific Estate Beach Trail up on the upper right. And what this project is going to do is, in pink here, it's going to connect these 2 pieces. So there will be a separated pedestrian path that runs from San Pedro Terrace Trail up to the bridge. It will be up on the bridge. There is a barrier between the traffic and the pedestrian bicycle facility. The barrier continues up to the intersection, as does the pathway along the shopping center, and then you can reach this intersection where you can safely cross by pushing the button and crossing with the signal. You can either go to the Pacific Estate Beach Trail or up the east side on the pedestrian path that exists on Route 1 or over to the Livermore area. So it's going to provide some connection there. Now, Yeah. So now, in order to do this, we're not realigning the road. We're not taking the road out to the beach and bringing it back around. And we're not going through the shopping center. We're replacing the bridge where it is, and we're going to have to remove the existing bridge first, so we can put the new bridge there because the new bridge is higher. And we needed to figure out what we were going to do with traffic and how people move around this area during the time of construction. So we looked at several different scenarios for how detours could occur. The first one, full closure of State Route 1 south of Lindsmark Boulevard. We just take out the bridge and then nobody can go south. If you want to go to Half Moon Bay, you got to go out and around, back through, maybe two. Not really the best option. Then another option that we looked at, another scenario that we looked at is a split detour. And there's actually two flavors of split detour. The first being keeping northbound traffic on the existing bridge. We take the southbound traffic and we move it out to San Pedro Avenue, and that southbound traffic will go around the project, but the northbound traffic would stay on the existing bridge. We cut the bridge in half, demolish half, build half of the new bridge, move traffic onto the new bridge, demolish the other half, build the other half, and move all the traffic back. Okay? It's kind of a complicated way to do things, staging in there that needs to happen. The second split detour option would be to place a temporary bridge in between the existing Route 1 bridge and the existing San Pedro Avenue bridge. That then has the benefit of allowing us to just take the whole bridge out at once and build a whole new bridge all at once. There's some significant time savings in doing that. The last scenario that I'd like to talk about is a full detour whereby all traffic north and south on Route 1 moves to San Pedro Avenue. We're actually going around the work area. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. But we looked at each of these scenarios and we had some selection criteria. Our first being delay. So not only the day-to-day additional time it's going to take to move through the project, but the project duration itself. So as an example, the full detour where all the traffic goes to San Pedro Avenue, that project will take about a year to 4 months. If we were doing this one where we're splitting the existing bridge in half and the traffic staying on the existing bridge and building half the bridge, that was another 2 years longer, so 3 years, 4 months. So even if well, the delays end up being all within a few seconds of each other, then if you take the extra 2 years times those delays, day times the length of time, just becomes these long hours of delay over the course of the project. So that was an important consideration. The next selection criteria is environmental impact. Now, all of the scenarios have environmental impacts. But when we stack them all up, there are a lot that are the same, and then some of the options have additional impacts beyond what the others do. As an example, maybe the temporary bridge, putting in the extra buttons and then coming back at the end and taking out the extra buttons for the temporary bridge, added extra environmental impacts. Probably needed to do more studies if we were going to go that way and mitigate those impacts so that the permitting agencies were okay with what we were doing with the project. Then there's safety. Back again to this situation where we're demolishing half the bridge with traffic on it, and we've got construction equipment working really close to the public, the traffic public. That's a safety concern. Another safety concern might be for the full closure of Route 1. If we were to close Route 1 completely, and there was some reason an emergency vehicle needed to get through there, they couldn't. So that's a huge safety concern. Next on the list, timing to get to project implementation. These options, like the environmental impacts, I mentioned, if we were doing additional studies or we had to do additional design time, that lengthens the time so we can get to project implementation. And that was important because, as Van mentioned, some of these funds have been around for a while. Some of them had deadlines that we needed to get to a certain point and get the project advertised and bid in order to access those funds, they would disappear. So that was a consideration. Last consideration is cost. Obviously, a temporary bridge is more expensive than just a bridge replacement because you've got that extra bridge that you've got to bring in, and then you got it, now you've got to get rid of it, and what you do with it, extra cost. So Again, I'm going to show you what this looks like in just a second here. But the selected scenario then is the full detour. And the reason is it has the least impacts. It has the shortest delay over the duration of the project. There were no additional environmental impacts. It was the safest, by the widest buffer between the traveling public and construction compared to the other scenarios. There's no additional costs and no additional timeline for the project implementation. Okay? So let me jump ahead. So this is what the full detour looks like. It has a temporary intersection here that allows people to get out of Pedro Point. Okay? And then it has Lindemar blocked off here and here. And so if you're traveling south on Route 1 and you want to go from B to either A or B, what you do is you take right and you head down San Pedro Ave, you cross the San Pedro Ave Bridge, then we've got this new curve that pulls off and heads back on the Route 1. Same going the opposite direction, this new curve, you come along and you go across San Pedro Ave and go back to get Pedro Ave. That allows us to close off this part of Route 1 and do all this work without having traffic driving right through the middle, and it allows us to work faster, allows us to be safer. But what is happening is, and even in the two split detour situations that I mentioned, where we have part of the traffic detour on the San Pedro Ave, there's a need to have this intersection, again, because we can't not let people get in and out of Pedro Point. If we didn't have this intersection, the traffic would just constantly be going back and forth, wait. So there will be a signal, temporary signal here. What that means is, in addition to the times that we have here, the current wait times you have at this intersection, there's going to be wait times at this new intersection, and it adds 30 seconds for most trips. Okay? There's one exception to that. I'll show you that in a minute. It's longer. It's at one time a day. But I'll get to that in a second. And in calculating these wait times, it's also important to realize that it's a worst case. It happens in the morning peak, people are leaving, trying to go to school or go to work, or just getting out for the first time of the day, and then in the afternoon peak. So what that means is that when we're off peak, these wait times are going to be less. Now I say up to 30 seconds. The range is really like 18 to 28. It depends on where you're going, where you're coming from, where you're going to. But say 30, because 30 is an easy number for people to visualize and think about. Another thing is that there's a pedestrian phase at the Lindemar Boulevard section. We block off traffic here, but we can't block people walking here. So if there's somebody standing here and pushing that button, the time is still included in that. So we can't totally eliminate the time from this direction. So the time combinations for these movements include that. But the good news is that there, in reality, isn't going to be somebody there every time you stop at a red light, and somebody's going to be pushing that button across the street. What that saves is about 38 seconds off the whole time. And then the last thing, if you're an unlucky person like me, drive up to an intersection, light's yellow, you stop, that's what this is assuming. You just get there, you just miss the light, now you got to wait all the way until it comes back around and it's green again. Again, that time is up to 30 seconds only. Okay? If you pull up, the light's green, you go. If the light's already red, good for you, it's still less than 30 seconds. So that's the point. I guess it's less than 30 seconds, and they're worst case. Some movements are actually faster. I'll show you what those are. Some are the same as today. And I do have to be honest with you, though, there's a couple of times where there will be longer delays. They're going to be off-peak, though. And when those times are is when the detour is just built. We still have traffic on Route 1. If we want to get people to start going on the detour, it's going to be done with flaggers. People out there stopping traffic. By state standards, those delays will be up to 5 minutes maximum. Okay, but that's off-peak, probably at night. One night at the beginning of construction, you'll come back the next day and the detour will be in operation. You'll have the same thing on the backside. We'll switch back to the Route 1 from the detour. But again, these are transient. They don't last very long. They're just short. Okay. For this next slide, what I want to show is a couple of the movements and the times it takes to get through this new combination of intersections. Again, this one's really still functioning the same way it does now because of that pedestrian phase. There's really no time saved unless somebody doesn't hit that signal. So what we could say is that you're probably experiencing the same wait times you do here. We have this new intersection that has its new wait time, and that's what these additional times are. Those wait times. So this red movement coming from D headed to B, southbound, continuing southbound, or D headed to A, southbound headed to San Pedro Point, again less than 30 seconds. I will point out though, that's only if the signal is red. That means that somebody is coming out and trying to get out and head north, or somebody is coming in and trying to turn in. They've triggered that signal, stopped you there. You're going to wait up to 30 seconds. If there's nobody waiting there, that light will be green, and you can continue. It'll be the same as this day. Okay? You only have the wait time for this intersection. Opposite direction, similar thing. Northbound, continuing northbound and northbound in the north. Less than 30 seconds. Again, only if this signal is red. Next slide. For people coming from the south, headed into Pedro Point, it's actually faster than it is today. That's not to say you're not going to stop and wait here. You will, but the wait time here is less than the wait time here. And you don't have to drive up and then wait and then drive back. You just have to wait and then drive. This is a faster cycle on this, considerably faster cycle on this intersection than on this intersection. So in actuality, this is going to be faster than it is today. Same in the opposite direction. And actually faster than today. This is our exception. This is afternoon peak hour, which is running around 4 or 5 o'clock right now, based on recent counts. Historically, it's been as much as 5 to 6. The last count showed it about 4 to 5 o'clock. This, for a short period in the afternoon, will have additional delay of about 70 seconds. And from there, coming up to it and going away from it, it'll fall off and be less than that. In the morning peak hour, this intersection operates, this movement operates less than 30 seconds late. So just this one nighttime, you've got to run out, run the safe way. That one will add about 70 seconds. Okay? So here is the construction schedule. It's divided into seasons, and I'll explain the reason for the seasons, or why I call them seasons. But construction will begin mid-April of this year. Detour, preliminary schedule for detour construction will take about 6 weeks. Contractor's going to come on board and they'll have their own schedule, but it'll be pretty close to this. But it'll be about 6 weeks, and we'll be switching traffic sometime in June into the detour. Okay? Once the traffic is switched, we'll be off the bridge. That'll allow us to demolish the bridge, and we can get into the creek. Begin the creek widening. Once the widening is complete, the creek will be restored. It'll be revegetated. Okay? So we'll grow back all of that vegetation that's out there and create the additional habitat for those 2 species. Do the foundation construction. That'll be going on between June and October. So if you remember back to the beginning when I talked about all those permits that we had, and those 2 species, the frog and the fish, that are endangered, what's really going on here is that between mid-October and mid-April, those species, that's the time when they become active. And those permits and biological opinions that we have don't allow the big construction equipment work to be going on during that time. So between October and April, it's really going to seem like there's not much going on out there at all. Okay, so that's why I'm calling this a season. So it's going to, this first season will end in October. Okay, then we'll come back next year, mid-April, continue on the project, complete the bridge, we'll bring in the girders will go down, the topping slab will go on, we'll add the bridge rails, we'll build up the embankments and put the pavement down, do the striping, finish up the minor items around, switch traffic back to Route 1, probably October, and remove that detour, and then construction will be complete in 2015. Okay. All right, so in a minute here, I'm going to turn on, we only have one projector. In a minute, I'm going to turn on a simulation that Richard, your traffic consultant, put together. And what that is based on is recent traffic counts. It shows the detour configuration. It shows the cars pulling up to the intersection and queuing up and waiting for the signal. The signal's turning, and the car's driving through the intersection. It's going to be running at an accelerated pace because it's the peak hour. And we don't want to sit here for the full hour and watch it go over time. So it's going to be an accelerated animation that you can kind of get a sense of what's going on. So for more information, Caltrans currently there isn't a website, but when it's being created, it'll be in place for construction of the project. That's going to be a place for additional project information. There will be regular scheduled updates on that, or regular updates on that website. And then if you're having trouble finding that, the city's website is also going to have a link to that. That's really the end of my presentation. We'll go to questions in a minute for the way Tim described it. I'll get this set up to show the simulation. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. So actually, as they're setting up the simulation, which is kind of fun, just watch the little cars move around high speed. But we can start taking your questions. So if you have a question, once more for those of you who may have wandered in late, what I'd like to invite you to do is we have a microphone dead center. Come up, give your name, and ask your question. We'd love to hear it. We'll figure out who can answer it.
Hi there, my name is Chris Fogel. I have a question about the increased amount of traffic. I actually have two questions regarding the increased amount of traffic that will be on San Pedro Avenue. I was wondering what kind of traffic control there will be for vehicles entering and exiting both the shopping centers as well as the parking lot to the beach along that increased traffic area there. So we currently have about three driveways.
Correct. So I did forget to mention, one of the things that happens here in the detour configuration is these two lanes here are both going to be allowed to be left for non-traffic. So the QC, I'm sorry, about these two lanes here. There's one, currently there's one that goes right, currently there's one that goes left, and currently one that goes through. Okay? They're going to be converted to two lanes, a through and a left, and a left. So these queues here, you'll see, if we only have one left turn, they back way up. But what actually happens is they don't go back as far because we have two lanes of it, and then they don't stack up and start to block the driveways out there, I guess is the point.
So there will be no changes to the existing driveway?
So the existing driveway, these are going to be right in, right out here, okay? So that means when you come in, you can go right, and when you come out, you can go right, you can't go left. Okay? And
Lastly,
okay, go ahead.
Lastly, related to the increased amount of traffic, will there be any, I imagine that's going to cause significant amount of wear and tear on San Pedro Avenue. Will there be anything to address that after the detour is taken away?
Yes. The road will have to be left in the same condition that it's today.
Thank you, Chris. Yes.
Hi, I'm Joanne Gold. I'm a Pedro Point resident. Can you speak a little bit to any of the pedestrian routing during the construction phase?
Okay, so currently we don't have any sidewalks up and down the route. There is a pathway that runs along San Pedro on this side. That will remain open. And otherwise there isn't one on this side. So that's going to remain open. This is also designed for bikes to be able to go through here as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Marcia Settle, and I also live on Pedro Point, as most of the people here. And my question is, I know when although Highway 1 does not shut down as often now that we have the tunnels, there still are incidents where it closes, and the traffic all backs up on San Pedro. And I just want to know if there's any contingency plans that have been thought about as how to handle those situations. Anybody?
From the silence, I'm kind of guessing the answer is no.
It is.
So right now, I think it's the same thing.
A significant problem when they close.
Yeah. So should that happen, that would be something to look at. But thank you for raising that. We'll chase that one around with these Caltrans engineers. Good going, Marcia. You asked the question, they got us in trouble. That's good. Thank you very much. Sir?
Yes, my name is Ernest Hayes of Pedro Point. And you did mention just now that the pedestrian access way will stay the way it is. But what have you considered with respect to additional fumes for people walking along there? Is that in a part of the environment? Has that been taken care of at all? Thought about?
The additional impact from idling cars. Well, we're still talking about the same volume of cars in a different area. I know that traffic was assessed as part of the environmental studies, and we're not expecting an increased traffic in the area as far as the air quality goes. In the environmental studies that we did, there was not a significant change.
So there's nothing to mitigate the additional fumes coming from vehicles as one crosses that bridge, the existing pedestrian bridge?
There's nothing to mitigate the additional fumes because it's not a significant increase.
That's for a year and a half, additional fumes for people walking along there. Is that right?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and so what they're saying is that when the study was done, it was deemed that it wouldn't have a significantly measurable impact on air quality at the moment. Now that may be indicative of what air movement is and a variety of other factors in that, but that's just what the report says, so there wasn't any other permit requirements put on that. So understand your concern, there just wasn't any other permit requirements put on that one. Yes?
Okay.
And your name?
I live on Pedro Point too. My name is Alice. A couple questions. The first one is, are you envisioning the cars traveling the same speed on this, detour as they would normally be traveling on Highway 1? Because that's a big difference. Right now, that road is more or less a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit zone, and of course, Highway 1 is about a 50-mile-an-hour speed zone. So are you envisioning that the traffic is going to go at the same speed as it does now on Highway 1 through that detour?
Good question. The speed for Highway 1 right now is about 45. It's not the speed. You're correct. It's 25 on San Pedro Avenue. The speed for the detour is 25.
Oh, so the detour itself is going to be going 25?
Correct.
How are you going to enforce that?
Yeah, that might
So-
be better.
Because the speed limit may be 45 on Highway 1, but if you try driving 45 on Highway 1, you will get ran over.
Well, there is a lot of advanced signage, reader board signs, changeable message signs, and there is a cozy term. What is construction zone enhancement enforcement, where CHP will be patrolling the area, and there are funds in the project to pay for that, and they can set aside to pay for that. So CHP would be patrolling this area in an enhanced mode both for motorists and for protection of highway workers.
Okay, so this question was, in my mind, related, which has to do with the pedestrian issues. So right now, the pedestrian walkway on the bridge is on the the left-hand side if you're going down to, say, the shopping center. And then you have to cross San Pedro Avenue in order to get to the pedestrian crossover that crosses the highway, like to get to the mall, to the shopping center.
This shop.
Yeah, so the concern I have is that, although in theory these cars are going to be going 25 miles an hour, that, I would feel as somebody walks down there a lot more nervous about trying to cross you know, sort of like trying to cross Highway 1. You wouldn't do that without a crosswalk. So are you going to, right now, there is no, you know, if you stay on the left, so if you go over the bridge, you're on the left-hand side, and if you stay on that left-hand side, when you get down Highway 1, you can't cross, if you know what I'm saying, because you have to cross on the other side.
Right.
Is there a way that you could maybe make the pedestrian crosswalk there on that side?
On the north side?
You know, just because I'm a bit concerned about, you know,
Yeah.
crossing that, you know, if it's no longer 25-mile-an-hour speed zone.
Right, so the pedestrian route,
In practice.
the only formal pedestrian route is along this left edge that you're talking about. It comes down
Right.
to this intersection. You need to cross here and cross here.
Exactly.
That's the route.
That they're going to.
And it does not change, it does not put people on the side.
It might be something you might want to look at, more pedestrians. This is already really, you know, pedestrians are given like, you know, 2 seconds to get off the curbway, basically, if you want to cross Highway 1 at all. So if there's also going to be basically what is essentially Highway 1 traffic going through there, it's going to get a lot hairier for pedestrians, I think, in practice. So you might want to look at maybe also putting a crosswalk on the other side.
The pedestrian timing is going to stay the same here. It's not going to.
Not the timing, I meant a crosswalk. We're not legally allowed to cross on the other side, as you know.
Right.
So that is changing at this point. But good comment. Thank you. Yes, please.
I'm Margot, also a pedestrian. I'm a pedestrian. I'm a resident of Pedro Point, but I do have a pedestrian
You're allowed to go
question.
any way you want.
I do have a continuing pedestrian question about, right now, as if you're in the NorCal parking lot and you're heading across the San Big Trader Bridge, exactly, right at the north corner of, yes, exactly, right there. It's pretty hairy the way it is right now because the sidewalk there is right next to the road. I'm wondering if you are going to install any barriers between where the pedestrians are going to be walking and the road. Because it's hairy, even though it's 25 miles right now, it's pretty dicey right there now.
There is not currently a plan to place barriers there.
There should be.
Yeah.
There is no,
Absolutely.
there's no sidewalk there.
There's no sidewalk.
There
Right.
are a line of plastic bollards there. You're right, you're correct. There are a line of plastic bollards there. There's not a concrete barrier currently there.
So I know this was not a meeting for input, but there it is.
Thank you. That was good input anyway. Liked it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jim Lang, I live in Lower Lindenmar, so I'm on Balboa, so I'm benefiting, I think, from this project. Just a question I have, when they introduced project in 1995, the floodplain project, at that time the bridge was part of that project, and that was the final step of it. And at that time I thought I was under the impression we were going to be able to drop our flood insurance. I just wondered if that was any part of this anymore.
Well, I mentioned earlier, this project actually completes the first phase of the Lower Lincoln. So what we intend to do is right. As I mentioned earlier, this project actually completes the first phase of the flood control project of Lower Lincoln. And so what we're going to do is right after we complete this project, and being that this project actually widens the creek to provide the 100-year storm flow, we will approach the Army Corps of Engineers so they can evaluate the area. And because that's a federal agency, they'll contact FEMA so that we can see what can be done with regards to your insurance. Okay.
But if I have one other thought.
Yeah, but in addition to that, I just want to let people that are living in the flood zone communities. The city actually, because of what you call the Community Rating Service of FEMA, the city of Pacifica qualifies for a 15% discount on flood insurance. So just want to let you know that if you're renewing your insurances for your homes, please mention that the city is at level 7, which is a 15% discount for that type of insurance.
One second part of the question then. I'm going back, and I'm off a little bit on these years, I'm sure, but in 1982 when we did flood, it was a three-pronged effect. I think one was high tide, the second was the pump system didn't work, the secondary pump system didn't work. I know that all that's been fixed and ratified, but the third component, which is still I think a concern, is the creek backed up, and it was from debris, vegetation, everything else. And through that backup, the bridge collapsed on Adobe, I believe, and that caused additional flooding that came over to our area and flooded our homes. And one of my concerns just in the creek itself right now, using through the 100-year floodplain project, is that so much vegetation has been put in there that I'm almost afraid that we've created another damming effect. But anyway, I'm sure that's probably part of the environmental project.
Well, I will say that the hydraulic analysis does include the roughness of that vegetation in there as part of the analysis where the water surface elevation hits for the 100-year storm.
Yeah.
And that is considered in the flood. We're still passing these the two bridges with pre-flood, with loom. So presumably the drift can go through as well.
Chris. Hey, again, Chris Vogel again. I was wondering if you could point out on the map where the staging area will be for all the equipment and construction
Sure.
material.
Sure. So staging is anticipated to be done within the right-of-way. That is going to be blocked off. I mentioned that this detour creates this area that's not being used. So we are anticipating the staging to occur here within the right-of-way on this side and within the right-of-way on this side.
I'm not, no stumbling question. I have two questions though. One is, what is that very primitive looking concrete structure that is now there? Is that part of your project?
Very permanent.
There's a building now that's right there, right near where the intersection is. And all of a sudden it's there.
Oh, right here. Right there. That's the water district's pump house.
Okay.
The water district's pump house.
So that's nothing to do with this?
Not this.
Okay, so we have to go.
That's actually for the tunnel.
Do you know if it's permanent?
That's for the tunnel.
Okay, okay.
That's
And my second question just goes back to thinking more about the driveways for the parking. Because all of us who live on the point, experience people just pull out of the parking lot without looking to see if the traffic on San Pedro that's there. And I assume everyone's going to be going out the exit that's on San Pedro because it's going to be too hard.
This one?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's going to be too hard to get back on the highway.
Well,
of
this will be a right out, so you
Yeah,
won't
and-
be able to turn into that direction.
Yeah, and so is anything being thought of to make that a better exit from the, I know some of that is Caltrans property there, but people can't necessarily see cars that are on that part of San Pedro, and they just pull out of the parking lot. And I just wondered if that's at all being looked at, something that needs to be improved, the flow of traffic.
No, there are, for this project, there are no improvements this driveway.
That's it for us.
Sheila and I live on this point, and you answered part of my question. So the only exit from that whole shopping center is at the south end, coming, like if you go past Fresh and Easy, there's a little driveway there. Is that the only exit from the shopping center?
So there's this exit, and then there's this exit here.
But you can't go left.
You can't go left out of
You
that
one. You can only go right.
And that's because this traffic is coming in. You would be
Yeah,
waiting
no.
here for
I
ages. Yeah.
get that part. Then I have two other things. One, so this road then is going to go in front of that water building that's just been built, or
Which is-
behind it?
Which is here. The water building will be here. Or it is here.
It is already there.
Yeah.
So, because-
In relation to this,
Yeah.
its location will be right
So
there.
it'll stay the same. And then the other thing is just, I've been over to Coyote Hills. It's a nature preserve over in the East Bay. And they've had a lot of trouble with cattails taking over the whole area. In fact, it was there was no water left. So I wondered if there's going to be some mitigation with the cattails that are there, because they've really prolificated. And is somebody going to maintain it if this is going to be the opening of the widening of the creek?
So in this case, because of the endangered species,
You speak in the mic, please?
in this case, because of the endangered species and cow transmission on the Silver Line, the cattails are actually desired as part of the habitat for both the fish and the frog.
But they do eventually take over. So is there any way, is there any way to control them at some level?
Well, the creek flow does naturally control them. It will wash them out at certain times of the year. So it's a system that works right now for the endangered species, which is important in this case.
I live there and I watch the cattails take over.
Site, there will be bridge or say that way.
Yeah, we're planting some wetland plants too. But they are going to be removed as part of the creek project, and then we'll be restoring that vegetation. And they'll likely come back.
Yes.
Hi, Sam Casillas. I'm a resident of Pedro Point. I have a few questions and I also have a comment that I don't expect an answer on. But the first question is actually, is the traffic coming out of the shopping center? Because it's really unrealistic to think that a lot of the traffic is actually going to be doing a right turn out, because most of it goes back north. The people from San Francisco are using for surfing, what have you. So was the traffic that's going to be especially building up there on the weekends and people going out where you have the Pedro Ave, basically the little V there, you're going to get a backup there of people then trying to go north. And that parking lot on the weekends can get 200 cars in it, and then throw on top of that the millions of people that drive right through our town to get to Half Moon Bay. Gets backed up on any given Sunday weekend all the way to Valamar. So was it the 200 cars that are there consistently taking into consideration for the traffic time?
So traffic counts were conducted, they've been going on for 10 years or so in the area, various times of the day, various days of the week. And what this represents is the worst case, what this represents here.
But was there a study done specifically for the cars coming in and out of the parking lot? I'm going to assume no, because you guys didn't do that. So it's something that needs to be considered, because that's going to add substantial time. Second question is, you had a long list of agencies that you work with. I mean, one of our biggest partners in the city, because they own 52% of our property, is National Park Service. And we're trying to actually have some sort of building around the coastal trail that connects in some way, shape, or form. I think one of the biggest travesties right now is that we see a lot of the animals being slaughtered along this highway. Especially, there's some that get killed right there because of deer specifically. I know you only work with endangered species, but is there a time that we can consider additional sort of either a walkway underneath where that frontage road is? And why can't we do it now at this point when you're doing this? If you're going to mess up traffic, might as well put an underpass under there. Is there any point in bringing up any potential changes to this at this time, or is it all a done deal? Like we can't add anything more to it that would seem feasible?
By walkway, you mean for pedestrians or for
wildlife? For wildlife, yeah.
Okay. So beneath the new bridge in the reconfigured, regraded situation, there is a low flow channel. You can kind of see how it happens here. There's a low flow channel that'll wind in here, and then there is a floodplain that's elevated above that. So when there's not big flows, there is a place that's firmer ground that can be walked upon. And that happens on both sides of this area in the regraded street.
So deer would be able to cross, and does deer go to the beach?
Yeah, deer can walk.
And then the third is just that this is a comment that we were all actually surprised that this project was even happening, and all of a sudden we got a note in the mail saying, hey, come and listen to this. So there seems to be a consistent theme from Caltrans and the city as well, that there's really poor communication as to when these projects come, because I'm sure all my neighbors would have loved to have commented on this project, and I doubt you got many comments from us, and we try to stay on top of this quite a bit. We have a community association. The fact is this, for most of us, including myself, this is one of the first times that we've even heard this project exists. We were all shocked that something was even coming. So in the future, especially with the debacle that's going to be occurring that you guys are trying to run through for Highway 1 and the Calera Park widening, we need better communication on those. And this was just done poorly as well. I mean, I'm really happy that you guys did this information session, but it seems like it's a little too late for us as well.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, I'm Danny Estrella, I'm a resident of Pedro Point, and I want to follow up on what Marcia said and what Sam said, because I don't know if you have, if it's registered that the exit from the Fresh and Easy parking lot there, yes, there's it's going to be a lot more traffic, and your studies were over the last 10 years, but the last 2 years, the traffic flow in there has changed dramatically with the installation of the Fresh and Easy and the influx of the surfing population there and the opening of the other businesses there. There's a lot of traffic. So you really need to take a look at this closely, because there's a significant safety hazard with exiting from that parking lot and turning left. As it is today, even without the enhanced traffic that's coming through there, it's a blind corner. From the area you look in there, you see a brown corner there. If you go down there and stand there at street level, there's a lot of vegetation there that blocks visibility to see what the traffic is coming around from the north heading in the south direction. You add more traffic flow there coming onto San Pedro Road. You add more traffic coming out of the Fresh and Easy parking lot. You're increasing the risk of collisions. And you had your 10 years of reviewing it, but you need to take a look at the last 2 years of what's going on today. The city should listen to this too, because I'm making a statement here that it's a safety hazard. Anybody who's going to get in an accident is going to refer to my comments tonight, that you were warned. My second comment is there's been a lot of cutting back of the trees there in the creek the last couple of weeks. Can you talk about why that was done?
Sure. So the reason the trees were removed in that area is that is the area that is going to be regraded with the project. That's where the creek widening is going to occur. And it was a bird nesting deterrent, so before the birds started to come back and make nests, to get the trees that they could make nests in out of the way, so that the project would proceed, and we weren't waiting for fledgling birds to leave the nest for the project. So the trees were removed before the birds came back, so that we could encourage them to go to other locations rather than right in the middle of the project where they would be in the way or potentially be harmed.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Sir.
Hi, my name is John Harmon, and I'm a Pedro Point resident. I have a question about that green space that's in between the two highways. So you're going to be using that during construction. Do you have a plan for landscaping that area after you're finished with construction?
Those areas become part of the mitigation for stormwater runoff, and they are going to receive stormwater from the roadways, the two roadways together, and it's supposed to, it's designed to remove pollutants before they get to the creek. Those are going to be vegetated bioswales. So they're not.
Well, it's high ground now. Are you going to dig it out?
Oh, yeah. So let me explain a little bit. So this bridge is coming up an average of about 5 feet. So that means on this side and on this side, these ends have to come up. So the whole thing's coming up relative, and there will be a low point through here flowing this direction and a low point flowing through here toward the creek. And they become vegetated swales. It's a natural native revegetation. It's not, ice plant or something, some fancy plants going in there. Something landscape.
Do you have drawings of that?
Sure.
Okay.
beginning, you mentioned that you had alternative routes. There was one alternative to having longer traffic on our roadway.
Sure.
And if I wasn't convinced or understood, I didn't understand why those alternates were rejected.
We can talk about that if you want. I mean, there were lots of reasons. There were the criteria that we had. Some had higher costs. Some had really long construction times. Some had environmental impacts that needed mitigation. Some blew out the funding because the timelines for implementation were so long. There are safety concerns. There's a number of reasons. There is a whole other presentation on that that's probably about 45 minutes long. But you know, we can talk about what specific concerns you have, but we did look at it from the different points that put up safety.
Well, I think you've heard about our own safety concerns about what's going to happen.
Sure.
I don't know about the other safety concerns. What were the other
Okay,
safety concerns?
so for example, one of the options was to just sever traffic here and not let traffic go down south. So we can go back to the other slide here, the other presentation. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're post the slide. Yep.
So one of the things, I was just checking to make sure, that when the website is up, which it isn't up yet, but when the website is up, this slide presentation will be posted, and that data that we were talking about, he's going to find the slide and show you I think there's 5 key reasons that this alternative is selected. When you look at those, that will be posted, and you'll have that information available to you off the web as well.
So this was the criteria that we had for selection. It was delay, project duration, environmental impacts, safety, timing for the project implementation, and cost. This selected alternative had the least impacts on all of those compared to the other ones. So it was the shortest delay over the duration of the project. There were no additional environmental impacts. There are environmental impacts, but some of the other options had significantly more impacts that need to be mitigated. It's the safest. It provides the widest buffer between the traveling public and construction. No additional cost, and there's no additional timeline for project implementation. And that was important because of funding deadlines.
Hi, my name's Matt. I live on the point. Sam's hit on a few points here, but the word boondoggle came out, and I think that's really the way this thing is playing out. Because if this was a 10-year plan, you haven't taken anything into consideration in the last 2 to 3 years. That parking lot at Fresh and Easy, when I drove here tonight, we drove down that frontage road to get here, heading north, and there was 20 cars going down Coast Highway 1. There was 8 cars, 10 cars going north on our frontage road. The shopping center was completely full. Every parking place was taken. What do they call those little shopping centers?
Like a strip mall.
A strip mall, yeah. It's gotten really popular. There's a lot of nice little restaurants there now, and it's really gotten heavy use. This is not going to be functionally possible to run the traffic from north and south and have us be able to get on off the point. I don't care how good these stop signs are. It's a mess now. When you got people coming from Lindelof, they cross the highway at the stop sign. There's no place to walk but right out in the middle of the road in front of us. When we're going down that road, there's 4 or 5 kids at a time. I mean, you've got to really watch your P's and Q's on that road. And I don't physically or mentally see how this is going to work for you guys. For us, we don't have any choice. We live there, you know. But I think there should have been a lot more input. Like Sam said, we knew nothing until I got that thing in the mail. This guy walks there every day for the last 10 years, 4 times a day, you know, and all the ladies that walk off the point, they're always walking the same way, back and forth all day long. It's a very dangerous situation. And, you know, I think we should maybe put a little input or thought into this or something. It's just, you just shove it down our faces, and we're not ready for that. We're sort of like a progressive community right there. We're survivors, you know, and the population that's using all the trails and the fields and the walking and the dogs and the people has increased hundreds of percentage in the last 5 years alone. They built that new playground at Pedro Point. There's 100 people a day that walk from that parking lot through the field behind my house to that playground for kids and the dogs. And it's just, it's nothing the way you're describing it. I mean, you're describing from an educational point of view how it's supposed to work on the highways, but I cannot see it functioning very practical for any of us. I mean, we're going to have a very hard time dealing with it, you know. And like now, we can come out of Fresh and Easy and we can go left and go down this frontage road. But now you're telling me we can't go left, we have to go right. Well, there's one little driveway, and like Mr. Danny said, there is no vision. It's a blind turn. And there's so many people that come out of Fresh and Easy that drive about 2 miles an hour, which you have to do. It's a constant, you know, and that is our access to our houses. Through that parking lot, back behind the Brand at the beach, we have a private road through there for Barrage and Newsy and myself, and on the weekends you can't get through there. You know, people are parking in the hardware store parking lot with their families and taking all their beach stuff and going down to the beach. Now I noticed that they just planted to put posters up in the shopping center that says no beach parking. Come on. Good luck, right? Good luck, yeah.
Right. Thank you for your comment.
Tony Seraphin, I live on Pedro Point. I was wondering if you could go over the rationale for the project plan and schedule. Because at some place you're going to demolish the bridge and widen the creek and then do nothing because of the environmental impact. But why couldn't you demolish the bridge and build the bridge so that we wouldn't be having this detour for 7 months when no work is being completed? Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So the reason for the 2 seasons, again, is work restriction. When the bridge is demolished is when then we can get into the creek and have to leave the creek through the creek widening. We also have to drive the foundations in. Once those foundations in, we're going to be also building up at the same time the approaches on either side. Those approaches, once they're built, the ground around the bridge isn't really that great. It's right along the creek. It's got a lot of water in it. It's got settled for a number of days. And again, we're trying to fit our work within this window of June to October within the creek. As the fish doesn't allow us to work between October and June in the creek. The environmental agencies just won't. Beyond that, the frog outside of the creek, completely anywhere around the project, limits the work that we can do from October to April. So we're trying to do a bunch of work, and there's some lead times. The stuff's just got to get in there. It's got to be, the foundation's got to be set. They've got to cure before we put the girders on them. And by the time all of that's getting ready to get the girders, we're hitting this window. And then the reg agencies are saying, no work.
Why did you start it earlier? And so
We're going to start.
where you picked that window?
We're going to start as soon as we can. We can start in April, so we're going to start in April. The window is October to April, so we're starting mid-April. It's April.
That's controlled by environmental permits. That they don't have there's a block of time that the environmental permits do not allow any construction work to take place, period. So it may not seem logical to us looking at it as dead space, but that's part of what the environmental permits require.
How long does it take to build the bridge?
A little longer than you think. Actually, the most important thing is, I'm the non-engineer of this, but I'll just speak to this. Okay. Yeah. Part of your challenges is what he just talked about. The first period deals with that, putting the building the land up and letting it cure and settle. They kind of, in my neck of the woods, I won't name the project, but in my neck of the woods, they seem to have rushed that. And so what we ended up with is that the land then settled after the bridge was built. And we've had this really kind of fun thing that happens as you approach a bridge and you kind of mess your car up on a regular basis. So, you know, that settling is curing is a very important process, and it takes a little time. But it's just a construction schedule.
Well, it's also got the sequencing. I mean, we've got to build the detour before we can take the bridge out.
Yeah.
I think so.
Just again, as probably not popular with the Pedro Point group on this, it's just a misunderstanding of it. But on the parking lot, I go over there a lot, and most of the people leaving that shopping center go northbound. So it's that left turn that now will not be allowed. I just wonder if it'd be safer to block off those three driveways so that it's only an entryway in, and then everybody would go out that frontage road. At least it's versus somebody trying to make the illegal left turn and backing up the parking lot, the people waiting to because that right turn is almost a mute point. You're only doing a half circle to go back to that driveway you're going to pass to go out. So if they made that just an entryway in both sides, it would get the traffic off that San Pedro Road into the shopping center easier, and it would eliminate the people making the illegal left turn, which will be the majority of the people leaving that park lot, I would assume.
Yeah, it's set right now as right in, right out. Okay. So this one it actually is locked, so we're not having a ton of people trying to come out in two different places. This one's right in, right out, and this one is in and out. I think the city has said that they will look at the vegetation and getting people back so that it improves site distances there.
Good evening. Dan Haggerty, El Granada. I have three questions. One, for the traffic going southbound and then they'll now let's make that right turn. Very small radius turn there, getting onto San Pedro Avenue, going southbound. So clearly that's going to, each car is going to almost have to make a stop to make that such a tight turn. So a question on that regard, was there ever a discussion or conversation about, possibly increasing the radius of that turn and maybe for safety have a kind of triangle island out there to kind of make a easier for the pedestrians if it was wide?
Yeah, so pedestrians don't cross this way, they do cross this way. In the detour configuration, the right turn lane is actually pulled out of the pocket, so we have increased the radius, actually, because we pulled it away from the curb. And so you can now make a right turn from the lane that used to be the through lane. So you've got more room to make that turn. And then it's just striping it.
Was that the limit of the discussion? I mean, I would imagine it was discussed somewhere at some level to make it easier to make that turn, because you're going to have a lot of cars.
Yeah, so there's two going left in the Lindemar, there's two straight through, and there is a dedicated right turn lane. Okay. One lane is going to be able to make that right turn. Nobody's going to be able to go through. There are going to be two lefts still. That's not changing. So we've got all this extra space here. We're not going to move the curb. We're going to pull the traffic away from the curb, creating a large radius there. This is all just going to be striped, so people can drive within there, without worrying about hitting the curb or that. They've in effect got more room because it's a way.
Okay,
not so tight.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
You had another question?
Yes. So, there was a discussion earlier about the possible tunnel for, I guess, for animals, but since we're here talking about it, was there ever discussion about kind of a simple tunnel for safety for people crossing Highway 1 there, now that the traffic's going to be down, And I'm talking about a simple, a few steps down, get underneath, don't have to worry about any car, you don't have to worry about dogs, and then pop up on the other side. And then have it available for both underground crossing and above ground crossing in case you're in a wheelchair or something like
Right. So there is a new pedestrian walkway that's going to run up along on this side, separated and protected from the roadway. So when it's adjacent to the roadway, there's a barrier. It doesn't go under the bridge, it goes over the top of the bridge and directs people up to this intersection. There's no sidewalk on this side here, and there's no plan in this project for the sidewalk on this side. So a connection underneath doesn't really need it.
I'm talking more than our boulevard.
Here?
Yeah.
To go underneath?
Yeah, because that would be 100% guaranteed, no one would get hit. Yeah, it may not.
Yeah, it would be
Year round.
It would be
They have to
consistently
close it.
full of water.
Well, they have pumps. I mean, it doesn't rain every month of the year.
So, at this point, the answer to your question is no, it's not a consideration at this point of the project, but a good idea to answer your question. Okay. And your third question, did you have another one?
Yeah, and just that configuration with the traffic going, your other slide. Is there any way you can slow that down to real time? 'Cause, I mean, it does look, gives the image that
Like flying up.
it gives the image the impression that there's going to be no problem. It's going to be everything steady flow. But I got this feeling that it's not going to really
It's a construction zone.
turn out that way.
Yeah.
Well, it's an unpredictable flow of traffic.
Right.
And, you know, everybody's off work, they have their hard day at work, and they got to make sure they get the groceries and pick up the bread, and get home, pick up the kids, and, you know, at that time of the day, people kind of really want, you know, want things to go smoothly, at least best as possible. They know that there was a lot of effort taken.
Right. So that analysis is just sped up because it's kind of really boring to watch it at slow speed. But the reality is, it is the best analysis on traffic flow. That's the basic standards that the traffic consultants use when they plot those things out, figure out what timings they need for lights and all that kind of stuff. So, but as Brandon said, there will be delays. The question is, how long are those delays? We're hoping that those delays, except for that one peak time in the PM, those delays should be measurable in seconds, not in minutes and hours. Let's see how it works.
Let's see, huh?
Yeah. But, you know, like any project, you see how it works. It has a plan. We'll see how the plan works. Right? Please.
Hi, Durango. So I'm listening to all of my neighbors and a lot of the questions, and they seem to be less about the traffic and
Right.
construction and more about quality of life, the pedestrian walkways, where people are going to ride their bikes, how they're going to get across. And so I guess my question is, did we miss something? Was there an opportunity where we would have had the chance to bring these to light before all these decisions were made and decided upon? And you know, where was the public input? Not that we have a problem with the bridge, the widening, and we certainly don't want to flood, but all of these other considerations, especially, you know, as Matt was pointing out, things have changed so much in the last few years. But the volume of people who are really embracing the recreational capacities of the Pedro Point community and the whole Linmar area, that's essential to why we live here. And those are all a sidebar to a Caltrans question. Obviously, it has nothing to do with highway and cars, but it has everything to do with why we live in Pacifica. So my question is, maybe it's to city council, to city planners, to somebody else, did we miss an opportunity? This was the first time I think most of us heard that this was going on. And we would have loved to bring this up before everything was too late. Did we miss it?
So, does somebody have an answer to that? There's always, I believe there's no process, and part of the permitting process requires public hearings. I don't, you know, that's what I kind of know, but so there at some point there was a public hearing. Now I can't tell you when that was. Can somebody say what? David.
Part of the problem is that it's been a long process, and so the initial environmental analysis through CEQA was finished in 2005, and the public input was at that point. There have been some notices posted. out on the bridge, I believe, in that whole area on all the light posts about what was starting to happen again. And I don't know if you did any other additional mailings, but.
The discussion with the council has been on what they was right over. I was just still thinking about Yeah, what they were saying is right. That in 2005 there was a public comment period, and then also when the permit was being considered by the Coastal Commission, there were also notices that were posted in the area about that. So those were the communities.
So I've lived in Pedro Point for over 14 years. I know Matt's been there for a long time. All my neighbors have been there for a long time. You guys did an excellent job of letting us know about this meeting, and I want to really thank you for that because it was really important. And then we took that up, and around the neighborhood, we spread the word and told all of our neighbors to make sure they come out and learn about this. So you did a great job of letting us know to come to this meeting, which was really helpful, but it was also a foregone conclusion, and you were just telling us how it was going to happen. In the future, if you could do such a great job with this meeting, maybe instead of putting a notice that looks like a lot of, civic numbers on the signpost as we're, crossing a highway, maybe getting that same communication would really be better. And then we would have a chance to inform you about what actually the pedestrian concerns are ahead of time and it might impact the community support.
I know that what I heard in the answer was the real public hearings were handled in 2005. And I think the nature of the community and the commitment of the council to communication has really changed since then. And the new standards that are happening today, I hope, Sam, I hope they change. And that in that standard of communication, perhaps that's well advised and we won't have that happen again. You have a question?
Yeah, I just want to kind of second this. So a lot of people weren't here in 2005. That was quite a while ago. I just got back from another state in 2005. I only knew about this project about a year and a half ago because there was a notice in the paper. And I went by the engineering department and I asked to see what kind of environmental, reports or whatever were available at the engineering office. And I was told, oh, it's not going to happen for a long time, so therefore there's nothing you can look at and so forth. You need to, do what you did for this meeting, but like about a year ago or whenever, send something to people's mail, especially for Pedro Point people, because obviously we're the most affected. Everyone in Pedro Point should have gotten a mailing maybe 6 months ago, certainly before you started cutting down trees from the creek. That was a big concern for a lot of people, and we just suddenly saw all the trees are gone from the creek on the left-hand side. So you really dropped the ball with informing people ahead of time.
Thank you for the comment. Now, do I have additional questions, or do we have? Okay, go.
I have a question about
Good.
the traffic and the congestion.
Yeah.
Because I am concerned about that. And I was wondering if, once this starts happening and the construction is underway and we have the detour, if the way you envisioned it isn't really working, if it's worse than that, worse than a 30-second delay, will there be plans to try to improve that and change it? Or will we have to live with that?
Ma'am, actually, that's one of the things that I would raise with Caltrans, and the commitment that I have with Caltrans is that the timing of that temporary signal, let me point that out to the ma'am, okay? The timing of this temporary signal, they are going to adjust it as the construction goes on, they will constantly monitor this one, and they'll make the adjustment for this particular light here. Okay. One thing that also that Brandon pointed out is that, you may have the 30-second delay here, but because there are two lanes now that can make this left turn here, there's actually an opportunity to make up for that 30-second delay. That's why what he described earlier was the worst case scenario, and that is, if both of them are on stop. And in addition to that, with regards to the information about the project, as was pointed out by both Brandon and Tim, Campus will set up their website, which will provide you with the regular updates on this project. And we will also put a link on the city's website so it'll be easier for you to navigate that and reach that point. Okay?
I have just one question. My name is Diane Jefferson. I also live on Point. Do you have any plans to now evaluate the flow of traffic and the time required, and then say 3 months after the detour, re-evaluate to see what kind of impact it has made on the traffic, and at that point, based on that evaluation, take some other action if at all possible?
The commitment that Dan spoke to, and I think the only thing that is in the plan right now is an operational plan. So within the operational plan, when the standards that they've talked about here are being exceeded inappropriately, then they will make some adjustments with that. However, the adjustments are within the system as it's designed. Predominantly, that would be adjustments to the timing of lights, not a rerouting. The rerouting would be a major construction add-on cost and would be prohibitive at that point.
And I think more importantly, it's scheduled.
It would add on, which would just cause a ripple effect of this. And suddenly something that's going to impact you for a couple of years would go for 3 years or longer, that kind of thing. We'd kind of like to limit that time impact on you as well. Yes?
Yeah, the lot of theme here is the communication here, the presentation is, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do, and this is what you have to live with. We are asking also about better communication in the future with the city, with Caltrans, as the projects are developing. On this particular project, we're talking about impacts that are going to be happening as the project begins. Will we have an opportunity to provide you with data, with information of our personal experiences, negotiating through the pedestrian paths here to alert you to any significant safety issues that you can act upon? Is there a place that we can communicate to you?
In the ongoing communication with Caltrans, on their website, there is also going to be an FAQ potential, yes? So an immediate impact on Caltrans, who is running the project. You also have an opportunity to submit questions, comments to them, which will be reviewed and posted, correct? So that will happen as we So the answer is yes, directly with Caltrans, who is running the project. Now, you always have the opportunity to run down Dan and talk to him. I'll volunteer. I'll give you his phone number. I don't know. So no, but with your locals, you always have a chance to talk to us. But the operation is not being run by the city of Pacifica. It was designed, but it's being administered and operated by Caltrans. So Caltrans will take that feedback and listen to it on an ongoing basis. They're set up for it. They're designed for it. You input it in, send them the things. They'll post information and post answers and give you updates.
Okay, so the Pedro Point community is is a close-knit community. We have excellent communication facilities here, and we are able to collect information from you. And also, I'm asking that we can receive responses to our questions so that we can filter your answers back to our community so we can maintain a two-way communication here.
Sure.
Can we agree to that?
Yeah.
And who is the contact person now?
I introduced her earlier. This is Bridget.
Okay, great.
Gidget, sorry.
Thank you.
Gidget, sorry. I do that too. How did I do that to you? I don't know, sorry. This is Gidget. She is the Public Information Officer for Caltrans.
Okay, thank you.
And she will be available for those of you to talk to her right now. Any other questions? Excellent. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you very much for being patient and going through our presentation. And thank you very much for both your comments and your very insightful questions. All very useful. We appreciate it very much. Thank you for your time. Good night now.